Welcome to another episode of Mad in Germany. I'm here with Malcolm Ohanwe, who is one of Germany's leading broadcast journalists in the field of pop culture and politics, bringing that together. Thanks for coming on the pod, Malcolm.
Thank you for having me.
I was just wondering, we've talked before, and I feel like you have quite an optimistic viewpoint about Germany, German culture, diversity, and how that all plays a role. So what makes you, let's start off on a positive, what makes you optimistic about Germany today?
First of all, the way my personality is built, I'm just a very pragmatic and sort of optimistic person that I just like to win and be successful and have fun. And so that is my personal sort of bias maybe that I get into it with. But then also I am lucky enough to have a lot of, be privy to a lot of knowledge or have lots of contacts or see lots of conversations that maybe the general public cannot have, because I am still very much so connected and a part of this, let's say, media elite. I still interact with these people. I know who reacts and responds to the stories of mine. Those are very influential people. We're talking about correspondents. We're talking about editors-in-chief of the highest, the most reputable German networks. And so I've gathered the information. Everybody's tired. Everybody's just like, ooh, they just waiting for that one person or that one article that gets it right till we change, because everybody's ready for this shift to happen. And
Are you talking about like Middle East conflict here? Are you talking about racism? What are you talking about?
Well, it's everything. Everything is intertwined. We've recently, I don't know when this will publish, but while we were speaking, we've heard the news of Assad in Syria losing his power. And now the debate has already been all over the major German outlets. How can we deport all the people of Syrian descent in Germany? And this is something that is very bothersome to a lot of people. But I feel like politically, emotionally, psychologically, there's a lack of strength and there's a lack of knowledge on how to do maybe, I guess, political warfare against, let's say, the other side, to simplify it. And so, and that is something that is in the case of the Syrian and migration debate. It's it's in regards to a lot of people starting to lose their funds for cultural endeavors.
There's huge culture cuts.
Yeah,
in Berlin.
I was recently talking at the Volksbühne, which is a fabulous building, and I appreciate that Germany spends so much money on their culture, their theater, their opera, but everybody's saying we are losing money left and right. We can no longer fund anything that we want to do. And so they also feel tired. There is this sense of like some political powers are starting to infiltrate every realm of society, and they're winning, and people feel very weakened and frightened and I think shell-shocked. But I do think that...
Are you also talking about, for example, like the Anti-Semitism resolution, the IHRA stuff, which was brought in by the Bundestag, but previously Joe Cialo, the culture senator of Berlin, he tried to make it so that everyone applying for culture or research money has to sign up to a particularly contentious definition of anti-Semitism that makes it quite hard to criticize Israel.
I think that not everybody has that intricate and that sort of deep sense of the details of the things that are going on, but they just feel it. It just feels weird. It just feels difficult. Like they have an innate feeling of like, I don't get all the details, but something ain't right. Like, this is starting to be too much. Like, now this person, I thought that was a good person. Like, why you have a problem with this person now and this person too? Like, at this point, we're getting to a point where it's like you can just feel it, but they need somebody that can explain it to them in a way that cannot be disrupted or disputed. I feel like there's this innate feeling, but maybe they don't really understand all the details. And when it comes to this definition, there's so many things that are wrong with a lot of definitions when it comes to anti-Semitism. Like, for example, they say you shouldn't use terminology or policies that are considered or that are connected to the Nazi time with Israel, because that would then in turn be considered anti-Semitic.
Right.
And this would suppose that Israel is sort of a static nation that never changes. So let's say maybe at the time that they formulated it, Israel didn't do any policies that could be remotely considered to the Nazi population.
Although it was only about 10 years ago that they formulated it, right? Maybe even
Exactly,
less.
yes.
So,
But who
yeah.
am I like so? But let's say but still you cannot predict the future. So how can you know that this will never be an option? Like this is
True.
impossible. It's very much so possible that people get inspired by all kinds of political ideologies. In science, when you compare or when you put things in relation, it helps us understand things in a more informed and more sort of rational way. You kind of get an understanding. But every history is unique. The genocide against the Igbo people in Nigeria is a very unique story. The genocide that was performed against the Congolese people by Leopold II is a unique story. The genocide against the indigenous people of the Turtle Islands, so North America and South, is a very unique story. But the Romani people or the black people do not get offended when there's comparisons being made. It's like, no, that's good because we learn more. We are informed. We get to understand how different things happened. Apartheid in South Africa was a very unique situation. But when Desmond Tutu and all these people who have experienced apartheid went to Palestine and to the Palestinian territories, that's what they saw. So this is a valuable information that cannot just be disregarded. We have to understand and and learn from these things. It doesn't mean you say what X and XYZ is doing is exactly the same. And that's never what should be done. It means let's try and figure out and learn so that we can be better, so that we can learn from our history.
Yeah.
So that's really what it means. And so it would be so far away from me there's no joy in any politician or any government that would maybe or likely be inspired by some of the most heinous people in history. But if you find any sort of indication, yes, best believe we have to discuss it. We have to talk about it. And maybe some assumptions are wrong. Maybe some assumptions are right. But it doesn't mean you can just sweep it under the rug. But if you have a definition that by default says you cannot even put these things in the same sentence, then we cannot learn from our past. Then we cannot learn what is different and what is not. Because what happens is also some people will then have conspiracy theories and be like, oh, it's just the same. It's not the same. What the Nazis have done is unique, and it's never, and Israel is not doing the same thing. I want to be very clear. It's a very unique and different history. But if we can't discuss it, those people will think, oh, they're trying to cover the real truth. They're not trying to tell us this. This is what makes anti-Semitism grow. This is what makes people think the most ludicrous, crazy things about Israel and Jews, that all of them just want to slaughter every Palestinian that they see. It's not like that. These are regular people. This can happen to any society that will be more radicalized, that will be more and more turned into a right-wing ideology. It doesn't mean that they're the worst country in the world. There's many other countries who perform crimes that are beyond imagination still to this day. The Igbo people in Nigeria, they face so much repercussion and discrimination. So it can happen to anybody, and it doesn't mean there's any nation that is inherently evil. But that's what a lot of people think. If we don't discuss this, it will create this, they feel like, oh, there's something so deeply evil about these people. And it's not. It's really not. It's just, we are, I don't know, a few bad decisions away in Germany, and we might have a situation where we have a very, very authoritarian and right-wing government, and that's nothing to play about. This is something that we, as democracy-abiding citizens and people and journalists and intellectuals, we need to talk about and we need to be sensitive about. And I genuinely don't feel like I haven't seen any person who is to downplay any form of anti-Semitism. It is so dear to all of our hearts because it affects us. It's horrible. The person that is anti-Semitic, that person is also anti-Black. You cannot make that distinction because at the core, it's a ideology of racial supremacy. And so, I understand that these are difficult conversations to be had. But we are intelligent and sweet and kind and good enough that we can do it, that we can talk about it and assume the best out of the person that we speak of, that we know that they have good intentions. And so if somebody might say something that isn't perfectly accurate, then you discuss it and you're like, wait a minute, did I understand you right? Can you rewind? Can you say that again? And there will be mistakes. There will be things that might be, and even myself, that might not be perfectly worded, but we're dealing with this in real time. This is an historic event that is happening right now. We are all learning as we go. Like, it's very, very, the news are just coming in milliseconds. It's impossible. And also, that's why I also give a carte blanche. I give a free pass. If you're going to say something that's a little racist or a little anti-Palestinian, that's going to happen. And now we still need to talk. You can't then, if I inform you and you understand and we have a discussion, and then you consciously insist on talking this way, now then we're going to have an issue. But I cannot expect everybody and everyone to immediately be able to meticulously articulate everything perfectly. But I will assume that you are a good person and that we have the goal of ensuring peace, freedom, and democracy for everybody.
I think that's a very admirable viewpoint. I'm not personally sure if I have the same one. I think there are some very bad actors in this debate, and I don't think they're all good people, speaking frankly. That's my personal opinion.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, not going to name.
But we have to work in good faith, unless you can prove that intention beyond any reasonable doubt.
Well, you say we're, I'll pick up on something you just said. You say we're all learning by learning as it passes along. It is historic. This conflict is absolutely historic. I agree with you. But a lot of people aren't learning. So, for example, the IGH, the International Criminal Court ruling on apartheid, right?
Oh, the ISTGH.
No, that's the. So in English, it's the ICJ, basically.
Okay, got it.
That's the ruling on apartheid. That found guilty. Israel is guilty of apartheid and racial segregation in the areas that it controls. Like, that just hasn't filtered through to the German media at all, even to lawyers, even to so people. So I saw today there was an article in the Bild Zeitung about a civil servant who it said Israel Hasser von irgendein Ministerium beschäftigt. And it's like the thing that she was being counseled for in the Bild Zeitung, which is a hugely popular newspaper, was calling Israel a racist apartheid state. She said genocidal as well. But like, Israel being a racist apartheid state isn't even like a question of opinion or hatred. That is a legal fact, and that has not filtered through. The fact that Germany, that Netanyahu's arrest warrant has an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, that has barely filtered through to the actual discourse on this question of genocide, among other things.
Yes.
So, like, how are people really learning? And how does it feel for you as a Palestinian?
Got it.
This, because you're one of the few Palestinian journalists in Germany. I think some people don't even know you're Palestinian because you have a Nigerian surname and an Igbo surname.
Exactly. That's very bothersome to me, and I'm glad that I get to address it. Like, I am Palestinian from A to Z. I was raised by a single Palestinian mother. I very much have a strong and deep connection to my father, who's a Nigerian, and I am a Nigerian. I have a Nigerian passport, but I'm Palestinian. And out of all the people in German public field, there's some people who their Palestinianness goes back to, like Sausan Shebli or Nemi El Hassan. Their Palestinian identity is via Lebanon. Then we have a very amazing author. Her name is Alina Jabarin, who is an Israeli citizen of Palestinian identity. But myself, I am literally from the West Bank. Like, I'm from the occupied Palestinian territories. I've been visiting the region since I was 3 years old. I've gone there almost every year. I studied at the Arab American University of Jenin. My village in Zababta, they all know me. Like, I'm in all the wedding footage. I'm a deep part of my village, of this Palestinian society. I'm as Palestinian as they come when it comes to people in Germany. Because a lot of Palestinians also, maybe they're from Syria or from refugee camps, they have never even seen Palestine. I am so lucky and grateful it has been a regular part of my life. So a lot of the time people try to take away my Palestinianness or say I do not have authority. Or they don't even.
Why do they say that? Why do they try and do
it's
that?
It's racist because they just think because they just see black, they see my name, and and I'm a Christian, so it confuses them because I'm a Christian Palestinian person from the occupied territories. We have the Hawiyya. We don't have like a proper ID that you can travel with. You always have to request like permission to travel where you want to go. And it's so funny because at the time when we used to go to Daffa, to the West Bank or to Zababda, which is our village. Shout out to Zababda. I've always been a local celebrity there because I had dreadlocks and I was always like the African when I was there at all the weddings.
Did they try and get you in the basketball team? I was at a Palestinian basketball tournament of different villages a couple of
They
years
was just
ago.
trying to touch my hair,
Yeah.
and they would always ask me when, and that means where are you from? It's like, are you? And I would say Ana Almani because I came from Germany,
yeah.
and they're like into Omani, so they thought I was from Oman because
Omani.
yes, I'm confusing to everybody. The conception of me being a German Palestinian was very weird to them, and then when I would explain to them like. And I showed them pictures of my mother. She was like, "Oh, she's pretty and she's light. I thought you were like a ugly dark Palestinian." So there's a lot of discrimination.
So there's anti-blackness within the Palestinian community.
I hold space for them, even though my own grandmother, when she would wild out at me, she was like, "Tu dreckige Afrikaner, was machst du?" Like that was like, "You dirty African." Like they was going in, but I still have grace.
Yikes.
I still hold space for them because it's my family. This is where I'm from. This is where I shared some of the best moments. Me and my cousins, we would always have a lot of fun times. But we were so, I guess, traumatized that we had some type of that psychological syndrome of like the Stockholm syndrome. Like when we would travel there, we would always have to lie at the Israeli airport and say, "Oh, we're just tourists, and we want to go see the churches, and we want to go to Bethlehem, but really we are Palestinians and just wanted to cross the border." And so that was so normalized that my mom would always like prep us and like, "Okay, so now we're going. This is what we're gonna have to say." Then we made it through the border. And then there was an Israeli Arab person. Shout out to Tufik. Tufik was our guy. He was the one that would always. He felt like it was like a magician. It was like in Harry Potter when there's in Germany we say Gleis 9 3/4. What's the portal that goes to Hogwarts?
Platform 9 3/4. Yeah.
Yes, and that's what it felt like because he was the one that what we would be in Tel Aviv, where everything felt like this utopian Middle Eastern Western paradise. People had like blue hair and piercings, and the streets would look amazing, skyscrapers. My favorite music was playing. There was like "All You Ladies Pop." There was
a great vibe in Tel Aviv.
It was a great vibe. Like it was the music that I loved. It was great. And then we would be there, and from there we would hop into this car. There was hardly any space, so then we would be on the. It was like a truck that had like a. It was actually meant for like. In the back of the truck, we could sit there and we were in open air. And we would travel
like
then.
A pickup truck.
Yes, a pickup truck, yes. And it was so exciting. We would travel then to the Palestinian territories. And as a kid, you see everything as like an adventure ride. But when I went traveling to the Palestinian territories, a lot of times there was like teenage Israeli soldiers with really big weaponry, and they would point it at my head at one point. Like we could have to stop every 20 minutes we'd have to stop. And they would point it at me, and I was like, "Oh my God, Jesus Christ, please let me survive this. What is happening?" And he was just fascinated by my hair. So then he proceeded to just touch my hair and crack some joke with his soldier colleagues. And then they would pass us through because we're Christian, they would always treat us a little better than our Muslim counterparts because they don't assume that even though nobody poses a threat, we're just regular humans. But the way that we're treated in the West Bank, which I now understand as a black box to so many people, but to me it was that's just what it was. When we had our summer breaks, we would go there. I didn't know that we were basically locked in like little. We were
like little enclaves, you mean?
Yes,
where you
we were
can't go
stuffed.
between
Yes,
the zones.
Yes, we were stuffed into little zones, and everything else was militarized, and we couldn't move in dignity. And if we had to rush to the hospital, it was by the grace of that Israeli soldier if they would let us through and not. And we would guess because we had the German passport and we were Christian, and there was this cute little black kid with the dreads. We were never really that threatening, so it was annoying, and it was very it degraded our spirit and our humanity, but we didn't endure any physical violence, thank God.
Right.
But so
and picking up what you said earlier about South Africa and apartheid and stuff, that's actually, that system was known as the Bantustan system in South Africa.
Yeah, and it's modern ways of just, we've talked about the terminology, what is a ghetto, what is this and that and the third, but we were shoved into little spaces where we couldn't move. It's horrible. It's very horrific. As a child, I didn't really think of it like that because I always felt, I just didn't understand, like, why were we all treated like we were potential terrorists? Like, every single one of us is like a potential threat to the security of these cool Israeli blue-haired, piercing-having people. And it was so weird because it's like, I just want to be part of y'all. Like, it was never I didn't think about it like that, but we were treated as such. They would always ask us very weird questions. You'd have to dress like the moment when I was a kid, it was okay, but when I started traveling there, by the age of 11, 12, 13, I had to always undress to the underwear, open all my devices, my
Oof.
Game Boy. Like you were
Wow.
criminalized as a teenager. You were treated like you are. They make you into this terrorist in the way that they treat you,
Mm.
and it was very weird. And so then we would go to our little village, and sometimes when I was with my teta, my grandma, the water wasn't there, but we just didn't think. She would just say "Hara Israel." She would say, "Oh, fuck Israel." They just turn off the water again, but I just didn't think much of it. Okay, so then shit, we don't got no water. She had canisters and um lots of reserves of water already, or she would she would put out like a bucket for the rain water to come, and that's you just thug it out.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, I didn't think much of it. Now that I look back on it, it's very sad actually. It's very crazy that we were forced to live like this, because this affects also the how long you can live, the quality of life. So in an oppression, it's not only through military combat that people will kill you. It's also through the deprivation of water, deprivation of
Mm.
food, deprivation of all these other things. And this is something that my relatives had experienced there firsthand. It was not a dignified way of living.
So
Yeah.
you spoke about having been treated as a terrorist because of your identity there. Have you ever felt discriminated against for being a Palestinian in Germany or for being a black man in Germany, or both? Which one kind of affects you more in a way? I'm curious.
Okay, so I was treated as such because of the security policies of the Israeli
Hmm.
government,
Hmm.
because they would also ask you, where is your mother from? Where's your grandfather from? Where's your
Wow.
great great grandfather from? Were they Muslim? What kind of name had they?
Mm.
Do you have weaponry? Do you plan to destroy the state of Israel? Like the type of questions that they would ask you as a 13-year-old was very mind-boggling.
I mean, and do they expect you to say yes to that? Like,
Yeah, and it's like, no,
it's
I
just
just
an
want to visit my
intimidation.
family, eat some maklube, and have a nice time.
Mm.
That's I'm promised.
Yeah.
And in Germany, it is weird. Growing up, I was always more so seen or viewed as just black because I had my dreads.
Mm.
And then at some point, I cut them off, and I just became Turkish somehow. Like a lot of people just now refer to me as Muslim, or they assume that I'm somewhat from that region.
Right.
Um, it's very hard for me to tell because my career rose very quickly. Like I became a very well-renowned journalist and sort of socially admired figure very early, so that I didn't experience that much discrimination. I got apartments very quickly. I got everything was very because I am the Germans have much respect for somebody who, if you work for the German equivalent of the BBC, if they've seen you in Presseclub, or if they've read an article that I've written for Zeit Online,
Hmm.
I did experience a different treatment. I'm going to be very frank with you. Like
Hmm.
sometimes maybe somebody, it's like a microaggression. They will ask you, "Oh, well, where are you really from?"
Hmm.
But the severe discrimination that I maybe might have faced before studying and before becoming part of this academic elite, I didn't really experience it like that. I experience it sometimes at the doctor when the person doesn't know who I am, or
Hmm.
doesn't recognize me. But I do feel as though as a journalist there is a somewhat deep respect, and this might yeah, but so it's not. So I still feel it as far as maybe intellectual discourse. So
Mm.
then people would then question or attack my ability to think. They will attack my ability to be rational or make
Because they're
assumptions.
saying you're not being neutral here.
Yeah, but it's also in connected to like in my whole demeanor, um I do not sell myself short and sort of castrate the way I move, the music I listen to, the music I praise, the things that I consider to be culturally valuable.
Hmm.
There's this German pop singer, his name is Moabit. Moabit is one of the greatest singers, most influential singers in German society. But it will take somebody like me to point this out, because in Germany also you gain sort of value or capital if you can then perform like I have good music taste. So then there are certain artists or certain things that will up your profile because it will make you be considered more intelligent
But
or
wouldn't that be
intellectually
kind of
valuable.
like quite classical music or
Something like that, or like a good rock band, or like a Aretha Franklin. You
right?
can do a little bit,
Yeah,
but
like
like a Nina Simone, you know what I
yeah,
mean? But me, I'm very
or
much
the Beatles.
Yes, but I'm very much working class. I very much like a lot of queer coded music, feminine
Hmm.
coded music. And so when I say, no, I really love Brandy, and I can explain to you why, and it's not dumb, it's very intelligent. I will see, I can also break down to you what kind of influence she has. And I can win lots of awards by dissecting what she's done. This is very like, oh, well, how dare you? I thought this was just low class gym music or music that you listen to at the auto scooter, which is like, in Germany, we have a big culture of like big sort of Jahrmarkt. How do you say that in English? Like fairs, like a fair?
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
kirmes, you mean?
Kirmes, yeah.
Like a fair, yeah.
A fair. It's part of our culture, and there's one section of it where you have these little mini cars bumping into each other.
Of course,
How do
yeah.
you call that?
Bumper cars.
Bumper cars, yeah. And this is considered for
Where
like
are you going with
this is considered for lower class people of German society who maybe are not as educated, who
Right.
are of Turkish, Albanian, former Yugoslav, Nigerian, Togolese background. That's because it's not that as expensive. So while the rich folk, they go to the tent in the Oktoberfest, because I come from Munich. Oktoberfest is a big part of my identity and my culture.
Right.
So the higher class people, they go to the tent or they go to the roller coasters because they can afford it. But the bumper cars, it's like €2 and you can have a good time. So it's a lot of people that's more from the hood, that's more like considered urban, that's more considered sort of less intellectual. And the music that it plays is Foxy Brown, Brandy. It's very much a different type of music.
That's interesting. Would it be these American R&B artists, or
Yes.
it wouldn't be like a German Deutschrap version?
Also, no, this also.
Right?
This is what they like. That we have this discourse about hookah bars. So if you
Yeah.
go to a hookah bar and you smoke shisha, that's low class. That's less intelligent. That's degenerate behavior.
It's very racialized, right?
Exactly.
And if we have to remember, of course, that the Hanau attack was against a shisha bar.
Exactly.
And-
And a Hano terrorist would also attack like a bumper car place if he wants to
Right.
get his target audience, because that's where the Romani people are at. That's where people that I grew up with, that's where we are. That's part of our culture. That's where we exchange.
So you grew up in a kind of multicultural working class side of Munich that many people probably haven't actually seen.
Exactly. And we set the trends for a lot of things, and we actually do produce very intelligent and valuable cultural output.
So I actually completely agree with you. And I think that one thing a lot of people don't know is that before I was a journalist, I was actually a music producer.
Okay, now.
And I actually moved here, and the first things I was doing work-wise, I was producing I produced a trap EP. I worked on some rap songs, just as producer behind the scenes and stuff. And I got quite into German rap, and that's actually one of the ways I learned the language, because I think it can be it's quite a good way of learning the regular street language, right? But and there's a lot of good slang in there, which brings in the influence. Like in the UK, we have a lot of Jamaican influence in our music, right? But then there's a lot of Turkish slang here. I think Germany, it's a bit more. Deutsch rap is a bit more like they take influence from everywhere. It's quite poppy production styles. It's not that like gangster or criminal in comparison to UK rap, but it is using Turkish slang. It's using even one of the top artists is Russian, Ukrainian, Capital Bra, yeah. And then there's Shirin David, of course, who's I suppose a very German mix of like Lithuanian and Iranian, is she? Or
yeah, so we're speaking now of like a pinnacle of German rap music that has now crossed over and penetrated and permeated throughout whole German society. But in the origins is very much a black German music form. So we're speaking of Moses Pelham. We're speaking of now who's fallen in the disgrace of German society, Xavier Naidoo. We're speaking of the Rödelheim-Hartreim project. We're speaking of Afrop. We're speaking of Sammy Deluxe. Like those were the people who really pioneered the genre and who saw themselves in Black Americans, and then they were actually, because of our history in Germany was also occupied at some point. It was occupied by the United States, at least parts of it. So
And the other part by the Soviet Union.
exactly, and France
Yeah.
and
Britain,
Germany, yes. And so
always occupying.
yes, and so they had the we called them the GIs. They had like their soldiers here, and we found them so cool. My father grew up during that time when he came as a Nigerian asylum seeker to Germany, and he would act like he's American. He would dress American. He would speak in a New York accent because the black people from the States were considered to be cool, even maybe socially superior to the white local population, because there's this deep admiration for Americans that the Germans had. So through this, my father could then regain some type of dignity if he performs as an American. And so these Americans and their children, they laid the foundation for German rap music. And then it was sort of co-opted or through fascination by people of Turkish descent or...
There was Islamic Force in Kreuzberg. They were quite an influential group.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So they then said, oh, we like this. We want to bring our own twist into it. And
And that's
think,
hip hop, right? Hip hop is around the world. Everyone puts their own twist on it.
yes, exactly. And I think the perception that you have of the music genre now, it really started with the advent of the early 2000s
Bushido.
with Bushido. Exactly. So we had Zido, who was like racially ambiguous, if you will. He was like a white German, but he
wore a mask.
Yeah, and
So
he has
no
this
one could
Romani,
tell.
the Sinti background
Oh,
as
does he?
well.
Okay, I didn't
yes,
know
he
that.
doesn't really claim it a lot, but
Yeah.
he is of a Sinti descent. And so he and Agro Berlin, they really ushered in a new era. So before, it was very much so in a black tradition, and the black Germans had like sort of this... they had the dominance and the authority of where German rap moves. And
Right.
Bushido really shifted that. And I will say, I think it's inspired by French rap music. So he saw what was happening in French rap music and how the Arab speaking societies were really growing through rap music over there. And I think he took that. And he is really the father of a lot of the music.
Of Deutsch rap as we know it now.
Exactly.
But of course, that's kind of evolved, and Bushido became just a sort of pop culture character and stopped being a rapper a while ago. Although he did return with a comeback diss track against Capital Bra last year. I don't know if you heard it.
I haven't heard it.
It was really good, actually.
Okay, I haven't heard. I mean, I feel like he's more because he's also biracial. Like he's also like
Right.
half Tunisian.
Yeah.
So I think
But he was raised without the Tunisian culture, as far as I'm aware.
Exactly. So I think I don't know. I mean, I've never talked to him, but I think at the core he's actually he is a very
German.
person.
Yeah.
But I felt like the discrimination and the racism that he had experienced, he said, well, then I'm going to be that stereotype. You say I'm the terrorist, you say, well, then the fuck you. Yes, I am. But I feel like he was cosplaying in a sense. I think he was playing a role, but then others took it seriously.
I think
somebody like Kurdo or somebody, the people that will follow up, they took that shit like Massif. He's of Palestinian descent. That was their life. But Bushido, I feel like he found a way to just turn the discrimination that he experienced around and make a profit off of it and say, you will not call me these things, I will call myself these things.
You can kind of see that tension with Bushido, and that wanting to be accepted. There was this song which I found really awful when I heard it, like "Das alles ist Deutschland," and it was all about multicultural German society and belonging to Germany, And I was wondering, I just mean musically, it was awful, but like, is that still the trend? Like, everyone wanting to belong to Germany as a minority, or is there also this element of rejection of Germanness? Like, do people of migrant backgrounds, non-European backgrounds, want to be seen as German, or are they very proud of being from where their family's from? And Germany, yeah.
It is so interesting. At the time, like I'm thinking of a song by Flair. He had the song "Deutscher Bad Boy." Ein Deutscher Bad Boy. And you know that song?
I like Flair. I like
that
Flair.
song.
Very
Was a
funny
jam.
character.
People would try to call him like a Nazi or like a racist. And I'm sure, because he had the German flag and he said like he has blue eyes, white skin, he's a German bad boy.
Yeah.
But when you look at the video, it was black folk, it was everybody in this video. And
Yeah.
he was actually proclaiming like he has a minority status within his socioeconomic group that he was in. So I didn't feel like it was a song for everybody that grew up like me. There was this one token white German kid that was always getting clowned, that they was always making fun of, that they was always bullying. He was trying to give a song to them like you could be part of the hood too. Like
Kind of like the German Eminem,
yeah, I guess,
but without the lyricism, let's say.
yeah, I guess so. It was more so like a thing like this song is for you. Come on now, don't. And I found this so subversive and actually so nice when you really think about it. That we've come to a point where now a German is actually, in that sense, so marginalized that they have this sort of empowering song. I thought there was actually some. It was a symptom of actually an interesting way where we're going in society. That it was a form of critical whiteness. Like
Interesting.
he actually marked himself as a white person, but not in the sense of I'm better or I'm bigger, but it's like we in this too. Like it's not just y'all. Like we admire you, but we want to be a part of this too. And I thought this was, when I saw this as a kid, I was like, okay, talk that talk. And so I don't know. Like now that I see lots of the musicians, I feel like they don't really give a fuck. They just mix a little Turkish with a little German. They just blend the languages, and they consider themselves to be children of the world. And I feel like they are overwhelmed by a lot of these political discussions that we have. They are more in this like
It's the grind set.
we are the children, we're the world. Like I am Kurdish, and it's very like, oh my god, the sun and the like. There's this Loon, this singer who I really love. She has a great voice, and she has a song about like her Kurdish heritage and her ancestry, and Capital Bra, who mixes German with Russian and Arabic language. So I feel like they're more like this giving more like Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide. Like it's like we just mixing everything. We don't really care about all this stuff. We just want to have fun, have some vibes, and
Sure.
it's just obvious that they're
No
German.
no
Because they
politics.
win Best German Act at the VMAs. It's just, of course it's German. What the fuck you talking about? Like to them, it's like, you on a whole, like I had a conversation with Manuel and I had an interview with him. Who's one of the most prolific musicians and rappers in Germany. And he got a little aggravated with me with these questions. I was like, so with German identity, how do you feel? He was like, bro, you on a different, we already in Jupiter. We don't even think about it like that. Of course I'm German. Of course, like, it's like, why is that even a thing? That's our flex. That's our grind. That's what we do. Or am I somewhere else? That's just what it is. Like, of course I'm going to speak different languages. This whole debate, well, I'm German too, or I want to be a part of this. It's like, nah, it's just, I don't have to say it. That's just what it is. See who's number one on the charts. So I feel like that's just really how they feel about it, and they don't even want to be asked about it. They just like, just put me on the radio, put me on a magazine cover, and I think and that's where I can understand some of the frustration that they might have, because I do still believe, and it's a tale as old as time, but a lot of the times these people of color create innovation. Like, let's say you talk about Shireen David. So we have a rapper, her name is Unique. She came out with an album in 2018, I think. It was top 10. She was already blending German and English language. She was already talking about her pussy. She was talking about like this vaginal empowerment. She was a very sort of explicit
Sex positive.
rapper in the German language. She's a black girl. And she got a lot of flack for mixing German and English and being a sexualized, but she paved that way. And then when Shireen David came along, I feel like she took that blueprint and just was way more successful. And I love a lot of her songs, and it's very well produced. But I just wish she would have sort of put herself in a legacy or in a lineage with these people of color that she's inspired by. But she will refer to a white German rapper named Kitty Cat, or she will refer, even in her songs, to Iggy Azalea, and she will refer to a lot of white, powerful women. But she doesn't really align herself, even though she has the Iranian and Lithuanian background, with these other people who have this migrant story. And so
I feel like she's also changed her image a little bit in the last year.
yes.
Like before this, and her style musically. Previously, she had that album. I forgot what it's called. I think it was her last full album. It was pretty good. It was very hip hop as well. And she was kind of this body positive, like big, beautiful woman. And then just that shifted, and she started making effectively house music. Within like 1 year, she dyed her hair blonde. Like she went away from that hip hop style. So isn't that kind of a trend among pop stars in general? Like they have their like
That's what
blackfishing, they call it.
Notice this is what a lot of Caucasians do. They dip into the urban pool. They do a little. They have that one black album that.
That's
they
what
do.
I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, like it's like um Miley Cyrus
Yeah.
or Pink,
Ariana.
Ariana Grande. Yeah, they will have that. Ariana Grande, I will give her her tens because she had Brandy on her brand new record. She did songs with Mariah Carey. She had Monica on there. She will refer to Patti LaBelle. Like
Sure.
she will spread sort of her.
But Sharon David, has she have ever paid tribute?
That's where I find it a little problematic because she had a black rapper on her album, Bitches Brauchen Rap, which you referred to, but she's
That
not
was
really
it.
known. So that's not somebody that could potentially be a threat to you. Like put somebody on there that can keep up with you, that's maybe on a similar
She should
level.
work with Nora, basically.
Do something with Nora, do something with Unique, do something with some of these black female rappers, and it's like, where's the problem? It's not, and I would appreciate it. I think it would be a good thing to do, and just show us that you really mean it, that you dedicated to letting us know where maybe your creative ideas and visions come from. But then again, I don't feel like at this point she will refer to herself as this musician or this rapper, but she is a businesswoman. So then that's what she does.
She started as a YouTuber, right?
And I will also cut her some slack because a lot of people are angry with how glamorous or how like larger than life she presents herself. And they're like, oh, that's not really hip hop. But then you must not know hip hop because
Yeah.
if you don't know Lil Kim,
Yeah.
if you don't know the way, like she was talking about Zsa Zsa Gabor, about one of them diamonds, she had fur coats.
Cardi B as well. The
Yeah,
newer
but
version.
but Cardi B, they try to take away her hip hop card too. But Lil Kim is deeply connected to the story of the Notorious B.I.G. She is as hip hop as it gets. And if you actually study the craft of hip hop, and that's criticism to a lot of German hip hop journalists who are like, oh, well, is that really rap? Is that really authentic? That's what these people want. You want to be rich. You want to be that girl. You want to be a little edgy and problematic. That's a part of being a hip hop star. That's very much now this transition that she's doing and being more glamorous and larger than life and playing with sounds. I don't find like it makes a lot of sense. That's what, if you look at how she modeled her career, that just makes a lot of sense. And so that's where
What is
don't
German
follow the
hip hop
criticism.
German music journalism and culture journalism like?
I think that a lot of the leading German hip hop journalists, they love rap, but they don't love R&B and soul music. And I think if you want to be a really good rap journalist, you must understand the roots. And at the core of this music is R&B and soul. You cannot detach these things from each other. So if you want to have a very strong opinion about hip hop and the way it moves, you need to be at least familiar with the basic elements of soul and R&B music because that's what these rappers grew up listening to. That's where their heart is. And I feel like in my
But
theory,
what about the culture journalists in general? I mean, like, culture journalism in Germany to me very rarely seems to come across hip hop, like in the feuilleton, in the major newspapers. It seems to be a lot about opera, theater, quite experimental theater, and then like maybe some outdated rock musician. You know, what is it that? Why hasn't kind of German media, for the most part, because I recognize that you're an exception here, why has it not come to terms with the modern cultural reality that we live in? Like, German rap is super popular. It's the most streamed genre by a significant mile, and it's just almost completely ignored.
yeah, I did a radio feature about that, asking all these questions. And I think a lot of it has to do with what I was talking to you about earlier. Like highbrow and high intellect coded journalism wants to perform this high intellect also by the music that they choose to present. And so we have this innate thinking that sort of the old white rock band, which at the time they were considered to be very wild and degenerate, but now it's considered like very sort of well situated, intelligent music to listen to. So I think there's the lack of bravery, and it's also a level of queer phobia and a problem with like music that that the gays like, that black people like, that women like. There's this issue of like you can't actually enjoy Dua Lipa, which I don't really like Dua Lipa like that.
I do. My
Yeah,
number one song in Wrapped was by Dua Lipa.
More
That's
power
it.
to all the
Spotify.
Dua Lipa fans, but there, I'm sure she has a very. If somebody can break down why she's very good and why this is very interesting, I want to read it. And if somebody can do that for these other music genres. I want to read it. So I think it's the lack of bravery and the fear of not being considered an intellectual medium, the fear of not being considered highbrow, being attacked by sort of right-wing people saying, "Oh, look at this nonsense, look at this weird."
I consider that to be very insecure as well, actually.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. It shows that you don't believe in your own intellectual prowess and your own ability to shift and move and with the times, because innovation and creativity is one of the core elements of being intelligent. So you need to understand where we're moving, and also these artists deserve to be checked and reviewed by our best cultural leaders. Like if I put out a great album, it's number one, I want somebody to talk about it. Why are they left alone? They deserve to have somebody that really want to dig into it and dive into it. And so
But my view of German society is that it's actually like extremely segregated along these racial lines. Obviously, there are exceptions, but like if you look at German editorial desks and companies, it's like, well, you've worked in more German media companies than me. I bet there were many times that you were the only non-white person in the room, right?
yeah.
Like, so to me, it feels like there is a complete control and like there's this image that's created in the media of what Germany looks like, and then there's what Germany actually looks like. And I would say, you know, if Germany really was the impression that you get in the media, I wouldn't be mad. We wouldn't be mad in Germany. We would have left Germany because it would suck. You know, it's just very pretentious, very kind of stuffy, and like backwards looking view. And you know, one thing I appreciate about your work is that you're one of the few people that's bringing this kind of more modern form of music criticism into pop music criticism into the German culture. But has it been like an uphill struggle, or it's been quite well at times? I mean, talking about working at German media, I did work as a culture journalist for Deutsche Welle for a year or two, and it was, you know, all white people, and they were all Anglophiles. They all loved the Beatles and like 80s rock and stuff like that. But the idea of bringing in something new was kind of just. Actually, I think the culture desks here are very conservative.
I think. So I made a really good experience at Bayerischer Rundfunk. I found those people who were like, "Oh, you got something. You are feisty. You have talent. Let me show you the ropes a little bit." And the ones that I really appreciate, and to this day I have a huge amount of gratitude to these people that I worked with. They would be like, "I don't know everything. I can show you how to make it." Like, I can show you the journalistic tools that you can make your story more compelling, or I can tell you, maybe ask this question. But you are the one on the field. You go to the clubs. You go to the places. I want to hear what you got to say and bring it here. And those people, I am very grateful for that. They've given me the room to they showed me their tools and their skill set, because that's something that I didn't have. But they let me sort of make decisions what is culturally important and relevant, because I had the field research. Like, I know my father has a barbershop and an Afro shop where a lot of African folks go to. My cousin, he had his own hookah bar. So I've been in tune to the things that people listen to. And so it wasn't like the case with everybody. Of course, there would be those people who were like, yeah, but isn't this for like the world music section? Or isn't this more like a,
Jugend.
Yes,
Like
youth or whatever. But I've had those people who, when I talked to them and I had the courage to be like, respectfully, I don't think this makes a lot of sense. And aren't I the target group? Aren't you trying to also reach me? And then we had these tough conversations, and it's a lot of ego involved, because, I mean, there's a young person who's trying to tell you that everything, all your whole ego is defined by being this cultural connoisseur. And within this place where everybody is very old, crinkly, white person, you're this one maybe 40-year-old person that had a rocker past and who's kind of cool because they go mountain biking. And so you the cool kid. And then here I come, really urban. I really know the real good shit. I speak English flawlessly. I speak Spanish. Like, I come in here like, nah, fam, this is not really good. Like, this is for the ego also. It's like, it's a fine line, because they have something to teach me as far as, let me show you the ropes, how to do
a good report.
the skill. Yes, a good report, but also I can tell you something about what I know about where we're going. And this is also a tale as old as time, is even in family stories. Like, sometimes you need to know when your time or your reign is up, and you usher somebody else in.
And do you think that's something that's happening in the German media in general? And also, do you think there's been a backlash, or rather a step backwards to that
There has been,
since October
unfortunately.
7th last year?
Unfortunately, I tried to champion that, and I've seen, and I thank God, I'm very grateful and humbled about it. The Neue Deutsche Medienmacher is the biggest organization for journalists of like a migration background, and they conducted like a survey amongst their members, and they said most of the members, they started journalism because of me. They put my name and they said I wanted to get in there because of Malcolm.
Wow.
And I have a lot of journalists now who I know, okay, those are offspring of what I was trying to do. They very much so also refer to themselves to what I've done. I see it, and
With
I'm
your
very.
kind of Kanakische Welle podcast, among other things.
I did the Kanakische Welle podcast. It was the first podcast ever in German history that really centered the experiences and the discourses of non-white or German people with non-German parents. And I will refer to people who have inspired me. One, she's a paramount in this discussion. Her name is Vanessa Wu, and I really hope you can get
I know
her.
Vanessa, yeah,
I know
she's
you
amazing.
can get. Yeah, she's been one of my icons and my
Very solid
beacons of light.
journalist.
And I really, what she has done is groundbreaking. People don't give her flowers, but she really changed our society and the game in a tremendous way. And there was a person named Frank Jung who also did that. Actually, the conservative newspaper Neue Zürcher Zeitung, they wrote an article. They mentioned us three as the pioneers of this movement, and that was big of them to do because they're very conservative. But we were very much so the first ones, and we had the audacity to center different musical legends of our time. We just changed the way things happened. And so, I was grateful to win so many awards for that work. And so I have a lot of people who now are working for the biggest media companies, and they did it. Like there's one kid, his name is Manuel Bialas. He's of Turkish descent, I believe.
Works for NDR.
He works for NDR.
Great investigative reporter.
Exactly. That's one of my kids. He was one of the fan meetings when we did Kanakische Welle. He would always message me like, oh my God, this is so cool. I want to become a journalist. I say, you go, you do it. And it's so many of them. And I say that humbly, but of course I'm proud also to know that I'm like, yes, I see the influence. And he did a piece about like the influence and the impact of queer rappers around Europe and how they changed society, and the way he did it, the tonality, the music that he even used as like sort of background melodies for the piece. It was something I was like, yes, that's where we need to go. He actually won the International Music Journalism Award, which I was one of the judges for, and I was able to hand him that award personally. And so there are some bits and pieces where I'm like, oh no, we going somewhere. After we did Kanakische Welle, there was like an abundance of podcasts that sprung up everywhere. There was one called Chai Society in Bremen. There was one called Heimatmysterium at the WDR. There was one called
But what about the backlash?
And so with October 7th, all that shit they just shut that down. All of these things have been collapsing left and right. There's a podcast called Barbecue Black Brown Queer Podcast. They did their final episode. The final episode was about anti-Arab racism. They said they didn't get funding to promote this episode. Usually you get like a reel or like a something to promote it. And this was done by, which I love and respect that they still as solid as they are. It's called Cosmo, which is also part of the public video. Yes.
Yeah.
And they are actually doing work that, in considering where we are, that I very commend, and I really appreciate that the integrity that they tried to hold on to. And they did the episode, and in the episode it very clearly talks about anti-Palestinian sort of repercussions and silencing, but it's just like it's there, but they couldn't really fully go to the front with it. And so but they had their final episode, so that podcast ceases to exist.
What happened there? I don't quite follow.
I don't know. I can only assume. I just know that the wave is kind of over. No relevant product exists in German media anymore. None that would be of intelligence or of good quality. And also, unfortunately, all these great young journalists that would now talk about the Shireen Davids or talk about this culture, they're busy trying to correct the anti-Palestinian bias in the media.
Right.
So that's what takes all of their time, because you go in there and you believe like, oh my God, democracy, or believing in the system of the Rundfunkvertrag that says that we are critical of what the state and the German state policies are doing. This is essentially what's is the core. That's why we have our German media system in this way, so that we can criticize the things that the German government is doing. But a lot of the times, to those journalists, it feels like those media houses are complementing the policies of the German government, and that's not how it's supposed to be. And so they would love to do, I've had conversations, they would love to do pieces on pop culture or these conversations, but now the hands are too full and too busy with trying to sort of save what is left of the integrity. Because I was also at the conference for the top 30 journalists under 30 this year. And there was one of the, there was one very known TV host and journalist. And one thing that she said was, well, I go to schools and all the people of color and all the people who have sort of a migrant background, they're like, how dare you even work for this network? They all lying. They're not telling the truth. They don't like us. They hate us. And she didn't know what to respond. And so this is very difficult for us because we want to hold on. I love ARD and ZDF still, even after all the things that are going wrong, even as a Palestinian, all the pain that I've endured during the way that they've done their reporting. But I genuinely still do believe in the system. And for example, they greenlit like a show called Black Fruits, Schwarze Früchte, which centered like a black gay man and a black lesbian woman. And the director who did this project, he told me, I don't know if you noticed, but I heard a podcast where you spoke, and it gave me the energy and the courage to say, I'm going to do this. So it is not in vain if you are positive and if you are optimist. I didn't think much of it, but I said, if you gay and you a black woman or a black man, just go there and do it, because we hungry. We want to consume it. We want to watch it. We have the numbers. And so that's also what I want to encourage everybody that's listening. If you want to be brave and do something different, we're tired. We want to listen to a cool podcast that could break down to us why, I don't know what it's like. We have the German celebrity Sarah Connor. She's so fascinating. She's like our own white Mariah Carey, who like, there's so many things that we still can't really discuss or analyze about our German society, because I am frankly not mad at Germany. I'm madly in love with Germany. I love our society and culture, and I just wish we could just be better and we would be more brave and just not feel so down, because there's so much fun and interesting things that make us who we are. And I want to put us on the map. I want us to be able to intellectually, culturally, and socially compete globally, because we have the people and the talent to do so. And so, I encourage journalists to do that, but it's very difficult right now because in the hierarchy of things, if there's this belief that a genocide is not properly reported about, of course, that trumps everything else. And so this is more important. And then, having said Trump, now with Trump coming in office next year, I don't know what's going to happen in that region, because that is actually, I feel like a lot of people don't even make those connections at all. And so I feel like everything will tie together. Because with what is happening in Syria right now, a lot of people that weren't really much in interaction, like the Kurdish or the Turkish or sort of migrant groups in Germany, now they have to work together with the Palestinian-leaning parts of German society, and there has always been disarray. But this is going to be something where now they have to.
I mean,
figure it out together.
there's the whole Middle East now is currently like in turmoil or big shifts, at least we can say, right? And that's obviously affecting how a lot of journalists are going to be doing their job. But I did want to ask you as well about you experienced some backlash after October 7th. I mean, what happened there? And like, I think a lot of people are really afraid of saying something wrong. Or saying something controversial even, because there's a very powerful lobby, by which I mean the Bild-Zeitung, by which I mean, the Deutsche Israelische Gesellschaft, people like that, who will jump down your throats. And politicians seem to listen to them, right? And it's interesting to me because I'm very active on social media, and like, sure, hell, I can ratio the hell out of someone, but no one cares actually. But whereas they do care if Volker Beck does it, which considering, his past and the fact that he's paid lobbyists and stuff is very curious to me. But what happened? So what happened in your case, and like, what did you learn from it as well?
I will say, again, this is a historic moment. We're all learning through the process, and I'm still trying to make sense of all these things that are happening right now. I'm still trying to figure out how I deal with moving as a public figure, but also as a Palestinian person, but also as a journalist who has some sort of standard that I want to uphold myself by, also in the way I communicate. And so I made statements regarding the situation in the Palestinian territories, and during the time of the vicious and brutal attacks of the Hamas fighters, who I think they killed 1,100 people in that festival. And so
And nearby kibbutzes, yeah.
exactly.
And military bases.
Exactly. And so I still really need a lot of time to process everything, because it's like the stories are still unfolding. Like, we still really don't know exactly. There were stories about beheaded babies that will come out during that time. Now it has been debunked that that actually never happened. So babies weren't beheaded.
And yet it still gets used in tats columns, site columns.
Exactly. And so this formed the way people responded and reacted. This formed the emotions
At that time.
people had at the time.
And still.
Exactly. So it takes like a lots of time to process and formulate sort of a way I feel about it, and actually understand what really occurred. Because also then we still don't know, because we're so busy dealing with the current events. What was the security policies that had happened? Why
There were reportedly some security warnings at the time that were ignored, right?
Exactly. They were like, why? Like, there was a lot of flaws in the way that the festival was set up. And then...
And obviously massive flaws in Israel's security. But, here's the thing, right? A lot of people were murdered. It's a very sad event. Everything that's followed was very sad.
It was horrible. It was horrific. And so, at the same time, it is a very tricky situation, because we're at a place also where a lot of it is not about having a real conversation where you can say, okay, well, a lot of the fights that are being had in the public discourse are also about legalities. So now let's say hypothetically somebody says something that might not be efficient communication, or that works for everybody. And then they go and retract or apologize or say anything in the vein of sort of downplaying or retracting whatever what was said. The message will not be, oh, this person is so reflected and this person is willing to talk. The message would be, oh, that person was saying bullshit all along. And that's not what it's going. That's the wrong message, because it's more complicated and more complex than that. So to be frank with you and to be transparent with you, I still need to figure out how I want to have this conversation. I just know that there was very irrational amount and very strong amount of backlash. But I'm Palestinian too. I'm a human being too. This affects me. My people are dying. This is killing me. Like, how do you respond? Like, why can't my emotions show? Why is there no room for me to have some type of rage? Like, there's this demand of, I need to make room and hold space for the sentiments, the irrational sentiments of a lot of people who have a collective identity that relates to the Jewish and Israeli people. And I have
through it's through killing them, right? Like, the identification of Germans with Israel is because, like, they killed a lot of Jews. They tried to wipe them off the face of the planet. So that's a very perverse form of identification, in my opinion.
I guess, I mean, I went to a group with a lot of museum directors to Yad Vashem, which I was talking to you earlier. And when we left that place, they were crying. They had stomach pains. They were ugly crying. These were grown men with suits who are highly decorated. And the way they cried, and they just snot coming out of their face.
Wow.
It was something I had, like, I shed a little tear. It was emotional for me, but it's not in the sense that maybe they think that their grandparents, that whatever that they did, it was something that I just had to sit back and watch and try and learn and understand the German psyche, or the white German
Of course.
psyche.
And it's understandable. But, like, you mentioned pro-Palestinian bias. You are a Palestinian. Shouldn't you be allowed to have your bias to an extent?
Yeah, but I don't have it. These Palestinians, the Palestinian society is racist as fuck. They have a lot of issues. I'm not biased like that. You will find reports about me where I talk about honor killings that the Palestinians have done, where I talk about Muslim nationalism. It's not really like that. I am biased towards truth. I am biased towards human rights, and I'm biased towards what the individual is going through. So if we're really, like, as a journalist, Of course, it's nice if the state of Israel, if it's a good state, if they can have a nice democratic society that is fun and good, all for it. I like the clubs, the food, whatever. It's cute. It's a cute project. But if it's at the cost of 5 million people who live like dogs, then I must stand with the human, with the individual human, and their human right trumps and is superior to the right of a state or of a government. I am so
And all
sorry.
of the 15 million refugees worldwide,
Exactly,
right? And
but
their
yeah,
descendants.
so I'm so sorry. Like, then you must think of a way of creating a multicultural conglomerate state where everybody can just move, and that's what's happening anyways. Like the Palestinian people from the West Bank, they're being smuggled to Israel 24/7 to do labor for the Israeli companies, and no terrorist attacks are happening. Nothing is happening. The Israelis is not being killed. In fact, they're working together and economically creating something. And most people just want to live a good life. The idea that once the Palestinians are free and no longer militarized, they will go on and slaughter every Jew is ridiculous. Will there be violence? Yes, but you have police and you can make a case for everybody and you can be like, oh, you're going to try, you're going to try. But most people, if you give them food, if you give them access to the beach, if you give them education, if you give them water, they'll be good. They'll be good. They're like, I don't want to kill nobody. I just want to go to university. I want to marry. I want to have a mortgage. That's what they're people. Palestinian people are human beings. And so it's unfortunate that maybe the demographic makeup of Israel will not be
Jewish majority.
yes, and so what? And now you can create rules or restrictions that always will protect sort of Jewish elements of this place, because if they want to reconnect with their Middle Eastern identity, oh, go ahead. I feel like most people will be able to live and deal with that. And that's okay, but at the end of the day, the right of an individual human must trump the right of a government apparatus. That's just what it is. And if these things are now at odds with each other, which they are, and that's not by my choice, that's just what it is, then yes, my bias will be towards the individual human, and that includes the Israeli human. They will be living more safe and more secure if this question is properly and sustainably dealt with, and not if it's just managed and they're just being put back into their cage. That's never going to be a solution for peace. And it's like, imagine German or Bavarians, as prideful as they are, being in some type of cage by another group who might say they have some type of ancestral connection to the land because, let's say, the Romans
The
go
Sorbians.
back, or whatever, yes, and then it's like, it's so sorry, and I feel so bad, and we want to have a two-state solution, but y'all gonna have to stay in this cage, and we just gonna have to have peace. No, as basic as it sounds, but if there's no justice, then you cannot have peace, and it's hard, and so it's in the interest of everybody in the region to just create sustainable ways of living for everyone, and I genuinely believe, yes, there will be violence, but they can actually be the beacon of light and show us how memory culture can actually work. If they really go put together and work together, they can show the Germans this is what memory culture is like. We're going to show you that we can forgive each other, that we can make programs, we can make our stage plays, we can find conversations that need to be had where the Palestinians can forgive the Israelis for the atrocities. Maybe they can get paid reparations, and the Israelis and vice versa. And then just people live together, because that's already what is happening. It's already a lived reality. To think that there's going to be a two-state solution when almost 70% of the West Bank is already controlled by Israel, is already full of Jewish settlements, that's impossible. You cannot deport all the Jews and remove them from the Palestinian land. I mean, you can try, but
Well, they did that in Gaza.
They did that in Gaza, but look at where we are now. And so, but
why? But this idea that Palestinians and Jews should live together in the same state with equal rights, that's like seen as incredibly controversial in Germany.
It is considered anti-Semitic by some, because that would be the end of Israel as we know it.
And Israel's extension. You're
but why do you want
Israel's
to hold
right
on to an Israel as we know it that is being considered an apartheid state? And why do you want to hold on to that?
Can I tell you what I think? I think it's because for Germans, Israel is the happy ending to the Holocaust. Israel is the one positive thing that came out, apart from maybe, international human rights, the Genocide Convention. Like, they can hold on to this idea that something positive came about because the Jews now have a state,
I wouldn't speak for all Germans. I think majority of Germans
But
don't
the
look like
Staatsräson,
that.
no, the majority of people, absolutely not.
Right-wing conservative.
It's an elite consensus. I don't think it's a right
Not
wing.
even that. I wouldn't even agree with that because I am in contact with a lot of the elite, and I know who, even Bayern 2, they liked my posts, which is Bavarian, which is the Bayerische Rundfunk, who allegedly distanced themselves from my statements. They like my posts, they watch my posts, they still follow me. I think if I was that horrible of a person, they wouldn't consume what I have to say. I really think it is a very extreme right-wing political branch of Germany, and they use Israel sort of to create like a way where you can be fascist and racist and then still morally justify it. And so that means through Israel, now you can deport all of the people of color that you want to get rid of anyways, but now you use Israel because you say they're anti-Semitic. And now you can use Israel as a beacon of example of what a great society is like, which it is ethno it separates its people by their ethnic makeup. This is crazy. This is actually it really doesn't make any sense. There should be no reason to not think about ways where you can have a Jewish nature of that place, where you can acknowledge the very much so real Jewish history of the region, and also be a place where Jewish people can migrate to, but still have equal rights for everybody. And then also when we speak of what is a Jew, if we're gonna go there, it is not actually inclusive. It is a Jewish place that is mostly for Jewish identifying people from Europe and West Asia. But I said I'm an Igbo man. The Igbo people have for hundreds of years claimed their connection to the Hebrew land, to the Israelite land. So, and the Ethiopians who have only been accepted in the 70s as being proper Jews. Like, if we're going to have these conversations, then open it to all the communities who feel some type of connection to Jewishness. And then you can, we need to have these conversations to actually create a sustainable way of peace and harmony for everyone. But statistically, unfortunately, a white or a Jewish person in general is more so in danger in Israel than they are in New York or than they are in some other place, because that's where the bombs is dropping. That's where the violence is. That's where there's a state of war.
Sure.
And so this notion of this being a safe haven, it's really not. It's a very dangerous
it's this kind of weird self-contradiction of like, we need Israel to be a safe haven, but then Israel's not safe, so we need to give them weapons. So it's like, but I think that's all we have time for. Malcolm Ohanwe, stay happy, stay mad as well, maybe.
Be optimist.
Stay optimistic.
Yes, we can do it.
And thanks very much.
You're very welcome. We can do it, and we believe that peace can ensure, and conversations need to be had. Yes.